Harris one-way Democrats can defeat Trump, be radically anti-war. Editors note the opinions in this article are the authors, as published by our content partner, and do not necessarily represent the views of MSN or Microsoft. President Trump is at it again. He promised to act. Trump's schizophrenic foreign policy is almost too easy to criticize. It confounds Democrats have a unique opportunity to close the traditional national security gap with Republicans, but only if they choose a clear direction for foreign policy and not just against Trump. They should listen to the case in point. The American public overwhelmingly supports Trump's decision to call off airstrikes designed to retaliate against Iran after it shot down an American drone. A mere 36. Might the public have a point? The establishment, who will be bold enough to argue that Iranian actions are a predictable response to Trump's provocations? That the real drawback. Iran provides just one example of the divide between hawkish elites and the more open-minded public. 2 new studies, CAP asked respondents to react to 20 different statements about foreign policy. The statement that of course, if voters wanted to cut military spending, yet insisted on maintaining America's globe policing grand strategy, responsible leaders would have to choose which preference to follow. But voters are pretty. 1/3 of Americans told EGF flatly that the United States is not an exceptional nation. This was the plural. The rising generation is particularly allergic to bromides about virtuous and limitless military deployments. Only 44. At the same time, young voters are eager to engage the world in ways that cooperate rather than coerce and kill. Their generation is. The last 2 presidents, Obama and Trump, were unlikely aspirants to the office, partly because they bucked national security orthodoxy, blasting Middle East wars and the political class that started them. Obama and Trump. Mark Hanna is a senior fellow at the Eurasia Group Foundation and teaches at New York University. Stephen Wertheim.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.